Hi, let us have a quick understanding on various building blocks of a JSP. JSP can have scriptlets, declarations, expression, directives, and actions. We are going to see each and every component one by one, and first we are going to understand about a servlet. Let me consider the same example what we used for the JSP introduction, where I do have a piece of code over here, and this we call it as a scriptlet. Scriptlets allows me to have any number of Java code, that's variables, methods, declarations, and lot more. It starts with less than percentage and ends with percentage greater than symbol, or we can use the JSP scriptlet tag with JSP:scriptlet. Anything within this JSP scriptlet or the scriptlet tag, it will be considered as a Java code and it will get compiled, and that will be provided as a response. So this is how I'm going to have scriptlet. It starts with less than percentage and ends with percentage greater than symbol, or I can use the XML equivalent of it where it will have JSP tag::scriptlet. And here I do have the implicit object out, and I'm using the println method of out. Out is a JSP writer very similar to the print writer that we had within the servlet, and I'm using the println and printing this specific text, and I'm using the request object to get the local port. The similar way, I'm using the request object to get the context path, and I'm writing the output over here. And as we execute it, it's going to generate the HTML output, something similar to this. And this is about the scriptlet. The same way we can have declaration also. Let me go ahead and create a new JSP, declaration.jsp, say finish. So I do have a JSP over here. Let me add a declaration. Declaration will be used to declare one or more variables or a method, and it can be used within the specific servlet or a JSP. And the declaration will have the following syntax where it starts with less than percentage exclamatory mark, and I can have any number of Java declarations, and the XML equivalent of it is I can have JSP: and then the declaration. I can have a declaration of a method, class, or any variable, and it is delimited with a semicolon. In case if I have multiple declarations, I can delimit with a semicolon. Let's see a small example. So here I am declaring a variable called first_var, which is of type integer and is going to have value 100. And I'm using the JSP declaration tag, and I'm declaring a string of named second_var, and it is going to have a literal muthuforall.com. I'm using the scriptlet and printing these values. I'm using the scriptlet and I am printing the first variable as well as the second variable using the scriptlet tag as well as JSP equivalent of the scriptlet tag. Let me go ahead and run this specific JSP. Right click, run as, run on server, finish. So the variables is getting printed when it is getting executed as a scriptlet. Now let us see a small example on expression. Let me create a new JSP. Here I am going to add a sample code for expression. Before that, let's have a quick understanding on syntax for expression. Expression will be put within the specific tag that is less than percentage equal, and it's completed with percentage and greater than symbol. The XML equivalent of it will have JSP::expression, and within that I will be having the required expression. Expression will have a piece of scriptlet which will get evaluated, and it will get converted into a string, and that will get inserted as a string within the JSP or the HTML output. This is a very simple example for expression where the current date of the server will get converted into a string and it will get inserted within the HTML. Let's see a small example. Here I am going to add a piece of code where I do have an expression which will evaluate the current date. And this is another example for expression where it's going to evaluate this expression 34 multiplied by 2, and it will get attached over here as a string. The similar way I can have the expression using the JSP tag as well, JSP::expression, and within that I can have the required expression. Let me go ahead and execute this expression. Right click, run as, run on server. So I do have the current date as well as the evaluated value of 34 multiplied by 32 over here as well as here. These are all the two ways we can represent the expression. And additional to this, whenever we are doing the coding, we will be adding few comments to have better clarity on the code. Let's understand how to add comments within the JSP as well. JSP comments are put within less than percentage dash dash tag, and that will be ignored by the JSP engine itself. So when the HTML is getting generated, this specific comment will get ignored, and so it will not be visible within the HTML source. And HTML comments, it can be put with less than exclamatory mark dash dash, which will be processed by the JSP engine and it will be added within the HTML source, and I can see that comment within the HTML source, but it will be ignored by the processor when it is getting processed. Whenever I wanted to use any of these literals, I need to escape it using the backslash. Along with these literals, I can use single quote as well as double quote. Let us see a small example. Here I do have a JSP comment. This will be ignored by the JSP engine itself, so it will not be visible within the HTML source. This will be processed by the JSP engine, but it will not be visible within the browser, but I can see that within the HTML source. Whenever I need to use these JSP tags as a literal, I need to escape it using the backslash. Either using the start tag or the end tag, I need to escape it with the backslash like this, that is percentage backslash greater than symbol or less than slash and then percentage. Even whenever I wanted to use single quote or double quote within any of the string, I need to escape it using the backslash. Even the backslash, I can escape it using the backslash. Let me execute this specific JSP file and see the output. Before that, this specific escape is not understood by the Eclipse, and so it is showing it as an error. We can very well ignore them. Right click, run as, run on server. Here I can see the source code of it. I am not seeing the comment that is added as a part of the JSP. So this particular comment is not visible, but this comment, it is visible. The same way I have escaped and printed this specific literal, the start and end tag of the JSP. Also, I have escaped the single quote, double quote and the backslash. Let me go ahead and add this specific project as a part of the GitHub. Let me get into the team menu, share project. Let me select the repository, say finish. So it will provide me the option to stage all the files. Server pages project, the commit and push. So the code is added into the local repository as well as it is pushed into the GitHub. So in a quick summary, we have seen different building blocks of JSP like scriptlet, declaration, expression, and how to use the comments. Most of the JSP we will be constructing it using these building blocks, and in future we will be discussing in detail about directives and actions.